Hello. Um, Hey, makes a lot of things at least a little bit better. I feel a little bit better. Maybe I'll feel even better with the second one. Yeah, just keep it coming. So I think this video is going to be a little bit more downbeat. I hope to lift it back up towards the end. So one of the problems that I've been having over, and I've talked about this in previous videos, is a problem with my mom. She had a stroke back around Thanksgiving of last year, and she's been in a hospital or a rehab facility, back in the hospital, into a rehab facility the last, you know, 4 months, it seems, 4 or 5 months. So anyway, um, the main problem here is that there's no communication, and since most of the funding of her hospital and rehab visits is done by Medicare, you basically have to just do whatever Medicare tells you to do. And they don't answer for emails, they don't answer phone calls, they don't want to see you in person. They just don't want to know that you exist. Um, so if you I just it's really horrific. I don't wish this on my worst enemy. I don't have any enemies yet. Other than these Medicare people, and I don't even know their name. But they just refuse to have any contact. So the thing is, like, if you have an incapacitated patient, you basically will have to deal with the family, but they just don't want to talk to anybody. Just sort of issue these edicts, handed down from Mount Olympus. This is the way it is, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And this is a growing concern because I know my dad's 5 years older than my mom. He's in a little bit better shape than her, but it's just a matter of time before he needs help. And I'm just going to have to go through the same thing myself alone. So I often say, like, I understand the response of people who want Medicare for all, but if you had any experience with Medicare as it is, you would not wish Medicare on your worst enemy. Although we haven't had to pay anything yet, it's just like it's going to happen. And they don't do anything, so it's just kind of delaying the inevitable. Um, it's just this total unresponsiveness, government bureaucracy. They don't have any stake in this. They don't not responsible for anything. You don't even know these people's names. If you end up getting a phone number, then they just sort of never return your phone call. It's just arbitrary decisions that they make that you have to scramble around and deal with like twice a week. It's a panic. They don't give a shit about you. You're nothing to these people. Um, so I don't know what like I have studied this in my health economics classes, and it's a goddamn nightmare. And the private system has its own problems, but at least you have that sort of customer aspect to it. But dealing with the government is like, we don't care about you. We're going to have our jobs. We're going to have a nice little pension. We're going to have good health care when we retire, and you can go screw yourself. And one of my main concerns is also there's this Medicare Medicaid sort of trap, a poverty trap, where Medicare is supposed to be there as coupled with your regular insurance when you get old. So Medicare, in the sense that you're too old to work, so you can't have an insurance cover anything because you don't have any work attached insurance. So this is supposed to bridge a gap in the coverage of your insurance. But both your insurance and the Medicare let a lot of things slip through the cracks. And Medicaid is usually there for people who don't have. It's usually means tested in a sense of you have to be both under a certain threshold of income and wealth, and once you're above that, it's over. You don't qualify for this. That means that if we want to even consider that as an option, they're basically going to take all of my mom's pension, which is not ridiculous. It's enough to pay for the mortgage and, basically walking around money and stuff, but they can't go on any vacations or anything like that. They're not living very well. The only reason they live in a house right now that's worth as much as they do is because they bought it in the 1990s when it was worth one third of what it's worth now. Um, So that means that eventually that my dad is going to have to sell the house in order to pay for some of her bills. That means in order for my mom to get well, they're going to have to be effectively homeless, or they've lived in this house. I mean, I partially grew up in this. They bought that house in 1995, so that's 27 years that they've been in that house. Jeez, didn't think about it that. So the thing is, like, we can't be the only ones in this situation. I'm sure that there are thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of families in America who would totally be screwed over by the medical system. And I'm not even advocating for any specific style medical health systems, not like the NHS or the Canada, which often get thrown about. They have their own problems. Trust me, I've been in the NHS. It is a nightmare as well. But if you aren't there now, or you haven't been there, you most likely will be there. So you need to start thinking about this, because essentially what it is that there's a massive wealth transfer from people, ordinary middle class people who have worked their whole lives to buy a home, pay for it, pay it off, only to have to sell it in their old age, take care of themselves when they were promised by the government that they would have the coverage extended into old age. So the government has really let them down, and they're basically screwing over those people. They're putting them in really stressful situations, and older people have a lot. My dad can barely stay awake half the time. How is he going to navigate some, Byzantine labyrinth of bureaucracy? Um, uh, just to stay, just to tread water. Then it's only going to get worse. So they're going to have to sell this house off, which has now like been a part of the family. Like that house has been there for most of my life. I am a great part of my life. Sorry, I'm a little frustrated here. I mean, I've heard people talk about, we're floating the idea of getting a divorce so that they can't go over if it's the house is in my dad's name, then they can't go after her. And then she falls between, under the threshold there, even though technically they're still married, or not technically married, but sort of in reality, they're still a married couple. It's just such a, that no, but the problem with that is that my dad loses power of attorney and then basically dumps the entire problem onto me. And I'm in a different state right now. I will be going down there later this week, actually tomorrow. And it's a little bit different having to take care of your mother than your husband taking care of your wife. It's a totally different relationship, and the nature of that relationship is totally different. You're not really supposed to take care of your mom in the same way that like a baby. Maybe helping around the house, things like that. I am totally on board with. I do not want to change her diapers or anything like that. I just, unfortunately, we are getting older as a society. Like we're living longer, but that those extra 10 years added on to the end, not very good. So, they can say, oh, there's an increase in the quality of life. Maybe. I just don't see it. And if you're sort of teetering on the edge there, it's really going to put you in a bad way. I mean, I just hope that one day I just croak. Like my grandfather did. He found out he had cancer, and then 3 weeks later, he died. Nasty way to go, but and apparently it was in a lot of pain, but it didn't last very long. And that's the best you can hope for. It's and this is on the forefront of my mind. I've already got like mental problems as it is, and then throwing this on there is just not very good. So the thing is that my main gripe about this situation is that the government is really just violating, mostly by incompetence or bureaucratic structure, violating the idea this American dream. If you say that the American dream is dead, yes, and the government killed it. And all those idiots in Congress are the ones who killed it. The president right now spent his entire adult life just about in Congress, and he from 1972 onwards, HMOs were not a big thing when I was a kid. You just went to the doctor. And then suddenly the whole system is totally screwed up in the 1990s. And who was a senator then? So honestly, I just don't have any respect for people in Congress because they claim to help us, but it's like you keep passing laws that enable this stuff to get worse. So I'm not really. This wasn't meant to be a political thing, and I try to keep politics out of it. But obviously, if the government gets involved with this, it has to have been a political decision because almost every decision is political. For court cases, which tend to be more political now than they used to be. So it's such a perverse situation where I'm forced into hoping that my mother dies before my father so it doesn't screw everyone over. I'm trying to maybe just screwing over my mom instead of my mom, my dad, me, my sister. It's just a nightmare. And like I say, I don't wish this on anybody. I hope that you just live to whatever, until the pain kicks in and you just die on the spot. It happened to my great aunt. She just croaked one day, had a heart attack, and she had all her finances in order. It sucks that her daughter found her in the kitchen, but everything was in order. All she had to do was just sign a few pieces of paper, sell the things in the house, and sell the house. There were all the pills were paid for like months in advance. She didn't have to lift a finger or make really weird conversation with trying to get a couple months off just because now I'm paying my bills and my mother's bills, which is a little bit too much for me. It's just she doesn't know how lucky she had it. None of this. She was in really good health until she died, and then just died. That's the way to go. It's just overnight, not long drawn out, and then getting bureaucracy involved. So anyway, that's the first part of this. Like I said, it was a downer. Now I'm trying to bring it back up as much as I can. It sounds like my life's a bit in a nosedive, and I'm trying to pull out. And so I asked myself, well, how can I handle this? Now, there are a few options. Recently, I stopped drinking, not because I have like some moral problem with alcohol. Alcohol's great. Just for somebody who has depression, it's not a good thing for you. It really screws with your mood. So you think, okay, drugs and alcohol off the table. It's just going to make things worse. So that's not an option. So escapism, and I think of like people who read too many comic books or many video games. So I'd say a little to get your mind off of things, but bring yourself back into reality. You have to be very conscious of not overdoing it. So I read a lot. And so what I've been reading, like a lot of history, a lot about war. I know that sounds a bit down, especially with the war going on currently. But I've been, the thing is that they're far enough in the past that they just seem like fiction, that somehow it's like a story being told. Like imagine if Lord of the Rings was true. I read that book in high school. I couldn't watch the movies. They're far too boring for me. I wasn't even a big fan of the books, but I get the general story. Imagine if that was true and then the world just sort of kept going. That's kind of what history is that things just kept going after the story ended. And that's the rest of history. And we end up being in the current moment. And so if you think of like you're reading about the Middle Ages, just think of it as kind of a bit of fun, but it actually happened. And it's actually way more interesting than the Lord of the Rings because this stuff, you don't have to mimic human behavior to make the story interesting. Most crappy books are crappy because you don't really get like human psychology, human mentality, human relationships, things that actually happen in real life. Uh, it just you just don't get it, and that's why they're bad because we want to just see another story. Maybe a little bit happier, maybe a little bit more explanatory, but we want to see a little bit more uh, humanity just in a different time. And the really good books, the really good movies, they give you that. Because usually the writers, they understand human, that's why somebody like Dostoevsky was such a great writer. If you read the Brothers Karamazov, you're like, this guy got it. Like, fine, there's a religious aspect to it, but he makes it human. Um, and he just got people. Um, so right now I'm reading Chaucer's Troilus and Cressida. You're like, yes, this guy gets. The story itself I think is a bit older, but he's writing in the Middle Ages, and obviously I'm reading an updated version. They have the Middle English versus the present, day English. There's a big difference, but even so, you when you read the updated version, it's just like this guy got it. He just gets nature of very young relationship and people getting involved with things and people sort of being over involved with your relationship, especially when you're young, because they're guiding you and they're giving you all this advice that's terrible. Never having to pay the consequences for it. None of these things are not very pleasant, but like I say, they're so distant in the past that it doesn't really remind me of anything in my life. So it's a little bit of escapism. Another thing that's getting me through is music. So right now, at the moment, I just finished an album, listening to an album, not making one, for Christ's sake. I've been going through Santana's discography, and so just going through and listening and seeing the evolution of Santana through the years, and really, really, like the first 4 or 5 albums are amazing, absolutely stunning. And then slowly members just start going into other bands. Neil Schon from Ernie was in the band for 2 or 3 years. Great guitarist. Imagine him and Carlos Santana together is phenomenal. The rhythm section is always on point, but the songwriting is a bit iffy at times, especially in the late 70s, early 80s. But Carlos, I mean, the rhythm section is always on point, and Carlos, his guitar is always on point. It's more the songwriter that lacks, or the singer doesn't really match up with the type of music they're playing. Anyway, that's a good thing to help me disappear from my problems for 40, 45 minutes. Just think about things, and let's go on to the next album. So that's an hour and a half. I don't have to worry about things. Um, Allowing me to concentrate on things other than myself. It turns out the solution to your problems is not focusing too much on your own life, but trying to focus on other things. Maybe not throwing your hand in the sand, but uh, trying to get through things by just looking outside. Cooking is a really good thing. Now, most nights, I'd say 5 out of the 7 nights. So I usually cook on weeknights when my wife works. I love it, even if it's something small that only takes like 20 minutes. 20 minutes that I don't have to worry about my mom or money or anything like that. I just go into the fridge, see what I can grab, throw it out, put it together. If it lasts 2 hours, yes, I've got 2 hours booked and I can listen to music at the same time. And lots of YouTube videos if you don't know certain techniques or trying something new. I love it. Also cleaning. I know that's a bit of a weird one. I don't know many people who like to clean. I don't like cleaning. I just cleaned the house last Friday afternoon, top to bottom. Took about 2.5 hours. Uh, that was 2.5 hours. I didn't have to think about too much. It's like, how am I going to get the stain out of the carpet? If you have cats and dogs, there's stains on everything. That's just the deal you have. That's the trade-off you have of having these great animals is that they make messes. It's just you can either have a very clean house with no stains on stuff, or you can have animals, but you can't have both. And my wife being a veterinarian, that choice is obvious. Um, and so another thing that I would say is that just generally speaking, better habits help me get through this. Now, there are two aspects of it. There's the physical aspect, the physiological aspect, and then the psychological aspect. The physiological aspect is I'm not drinking. It's say it doesn't really make me feel. I mean, you have to think about this in a very utilitarian way. Not making me feel worse means that on average, I feel better. Now, I love a cold beer on a hot day. We haven't had many hot days yet, but they're coming. Um, so I've decided that I didn't want any alcohol in the house, anything that I wanted. So my wife has a couple things that I don't really like, certain types of wine or certain types of beer that I don't like. It's the same thing with cookies. Like you can have it, put raisins in it. I won't touch them. I hate raisins. Um, and so not drinking doesn't necessarily make me feel better, but the mood swings are really, really dampened a lot. And that's a good thing. And eating better and exercise is really good too. You got a little burst after I actually walked all the way up to Center City, which, and back. That took me about an hour and a half. And I went and did things. I saw something weird up there that I can tell my wife about, just something to talk about. Um, and I started, weighing myself on a daily basis. And I see like, if it's not getting, I'm not losing weight, I'm not putting on weight. And that might be down to alcohol, might be better food habits or whatever. Um, a little bit of both. But you feel like a sense of accomplishment. Hey, I've lost 12 pounds already in about 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't know, close to 4 weeks. That's pretty good. It's like 3 pounds a week. Walking, eating less, not drinking. Uh, that makes you feel good because you've accomplished something. Your pants maybe even fit better, or they fit worse because you're just swimming in them. And so I might have to get a new pair of pants, which I can't really afford at the moment, but some pants that I couldn't fit into, I can now fit into. So it's like you've expanded your wardrobe a bit. Um, uh, I think psychologically, the main thing beyond like sense of accomplishment and just feeling better uh, physically does lead to a psychological benefit. Um, my main focus is trying to get through the day whole and sane. That's all I'm trying to do is just make it through the day without breaking down, either in a rage or just staying in bed until noon or whatever. I'm just trying to do something to make sure that today wasn't a complete waste of time. I'm not trying to come up with some grand solution to my problems or anything like that, like making a time machine, going back, investing in Bitcoin, coming back with $1 billion, and then, hey, all of these problems kind of go away a bit. That's not going to happen. So you just basically just have to get through the day without killing yourself or anyone else. Um, that's what you're kind of reduced to. But it's a good thing, just basically because that's totally achievable if you think about it. Big, lofty goals are rarely ever accomplished. Otherwise, people would be on the moon, they'd be hanging out, having a cup of tea on the sun. It just wouldn't, it's just not very feasible for big things to happen all the time. That's why they're big things. Um, I've also done a lot of little projects around the house that need doing. I found a box of clothes that were marked like sort of other, and I went through them. I found 3 pairs of shorts, each one of them without a button in the waist that holds them together. Um, and I thought, oh, well, I'll just sew some buttons on 3 pairs of shorts. I'm ready for the summer. I already have a couple others. I don't need to buy new shorts because I just do that. Um, and it's either free or it's a bonus because I wasn't going to buy any anyway. It's just less laundry I have to do. Um, Organizing is another thing. Little projects. I bought a little folder for $5, and I thought, oh, $5. It's gonna be pretty. I found stuff. And I put whenever I find the Social Security card, bank documents, things like that. It goes in the red folder. red folder. The red folder's sitting right there. You can see it right there. And if I need something, boom, red folder, there it is. Um, this is totally against what I'm normally like, but I find that I've already used it twice. It's paid for itself. Because if I figure, like, if I were looking for that bank document and I didn't have the red folder, it'd be somewhere I'd spend an hour looking for it. $5 an hour, right there. $5 for that hour back of my life that I can just go to the the folder and just pull it out. And I'll never have to do that again. It just keeps paying for itself. And it sounds so stupid, but it's really just the amount of time you waste looking for stuff is insane. So anyway, those are my little coping mechanisms, and basically I still have other problems. Like I'm still barely hanging on without a job. I've had, since the new year, I've had 5 interviews for 4 jobs. The last interview I had was last Thursday. It was with the city of Philadelphia. I have a follow-up interview next week, so not this week, but as in 7, 8 days from now. So I hope it goes well. It's not a job that is really up my alley. I know I can do it, given the person describing it to me and asking me to describe it back. She said, "Yeah, it's more or less your job." And I thought, okay, it doesn't pay that well. Apparently, if you work for a city or a state or the federal government, your benefits are ridiculously good. So that's something, right? Um, Now the downside is that basically it doesn't pay well as much as I like, and it forces me to live in the city for a long time. We wanted to move out to the suburbs of the countryside because I'm tired of hearing sirens everywhere and reading about this really messed up crimes happening. Not too far from here, there was a story about uh, this person who got pulled over for a DUI, and then the cops, 2 cops, pulled over the person, a woman who was like early 20s, drunk out of her mind, and then they had to leave her to go get some guy who was wandering around in the middle of the highway. This is 95 down near where the stadium for the Eagles and the Phillies and the Flyers and the Sixers are. They're all on one section in South Philadelphia, the extreme south, just before the the airport and the port. Um, and then so the DUI, they say don't go anywhere to the DUI. Of course, the DUI goes, and then DUI comes back around, kills both cops and the passenger, the guy who's wandering around in the middle of the road. And she just apparently she's been arrested and charged with murder. God damn, like I saw the list of charges, I'm like, all that in one evening. Jeez, you are an overachiever of a loser. And just, I'm tired of hearing about this stuff. And it happens all the time when you live in a big city. I don't want to live here, but this job just seems a little too, good to pass up. I don't have it in the bag, but I know I can do it. It's just a question of who else is out there who wants the job. And so my attitude ordinarily would be like, oh, just don't take the job. But I'm thinking like, I need this job. I see this as a possible chapter. It's like a book. You have a different style of books. You have books. Let's say every book is 500 pages. Some books will have 5 chapters. That means there's 100 pages in each chapter, which I hate. I honestly, unless I have to read the book or it's so good, I just can get over that fact. It's a deal breaker. I like to read in 20-page or less chunks, so 20 or fewer pages. So my ideal one is somewhere between 10 and 15 pages. I can read it, and then if I start to doze off, I'll have to power through the rest, the next 2 pages, and then put it down. But if it's 100 pages, you kind of get lost. It's hard to stop anywhere, so you have to commit to a good 2 hours or so, depending on how thick and pretty the text is. And so if you look at life as, okay, let's say you have 75 years or 80 years to live. If you divide them up into big chapters, you only have a few chapters in your book. But if you divide them up into little chapters, it makes life a little bit more interesting. It makes it flow better. It makes moving to the next chapter not so momentous, but it not so unfeasible. So I kind of think, okay, if I can just hold on to this job and maybe look for an exit as soon as I get on into the job, something that pays the bills and I can do the job and I can point back to it, beef up my resume a little. And in the meantime, it doesn't look like it's a very taxing job. It's like 9 to 5, no overtime, nothing on the weekends. You get like ridiculous holidays that most people don't get off, like Columbus Day. The funny thing is that, speaking of Columbus, I'm kind of thinking about this in the way that Christopher Columbus did himself. Now, I know he's not a very popular figure these days because he was a bit of a jackass. But if you take what he did, the way he planned his whole journey to America, that's a great model of how to do anything, if you think about it. So he thought, I want to go west to go east. I want to go to Asia. I keep hearing different stories about how he wanted to go to Japan or China or India. I think he wanted to go to them all, just hit them, boom, boom, boom. Didn't really know exactly where they were, but he thought, hey, it's such a pain in the ass to go east because you have to deal with all these Turks, you have to deal with the Arabs, you have to deal with the Indians, the mountains. It's just too much. And going around Africa doesn't seem really possible because there are all kinds of crazy crap, like the weather's really bad at the bottom. And it's too much. If we go west, since the world is round, we'll come to the east. And he tried to sell this to the Spanish. He tried to sell it to the French. He was going to go to England. He got called back to Spain, and they did a deal, and they gave him everything he wanted. And you just basically, you don't really know where you're going. You just sort of get a general direction and just go there. And Christopher Columbus was from Genoa. If you go to Genoa, this is the only place I've really been in Italy. There's a giant Christopher Columbus statue in the middle of a roundabout in the center part of town. And he's pointing west, I think. And he basically knew it wasn't going to happen in Genoa. To do what he wanted to do is basically travel and make a lot of money. So he went to places that probably had the money. So he went to the 3 countries that you could really speak of who were in the business of exploring. And they said, look, I got this plan. You in? I'll give you some kind of cut. We'll do a deal. Sounds like he's from South Philadelphia. Speaking of which, there's a park down there. There's Marconi Park and there's Columbus Park on opposite sides of the street. And Marconi, the guy who invented the radio, he's fine. His statue's up. But they got a giant wooden, boxed up Christopher Columbus. So he looks like he's in just like in a museum, like Indiana Jones's the Ark of the Covenant was at the end of the movie. And there's a cop sitting there almost all the time. So Christopher Columbus has been canceled in South Philadelphia, which is very unpopular. If you see more Italian flags around here than you do American flags, although nobody speaks Italian. Anyways, the point is that like Christopher Columbus, he just went to the people who could do something for him. He could, do a deal. I do something that you want. You do something I want, we'll make a deal, and then everybody's happy, right? And I think that's what you need to do. It's just kind of find what you can get. Rather than having very specific goals, just have a general goal and do what you need to do to get it going. So if and when this job takes place, I'm going to just find jobs that I want and then just fill in all the, whatever gaps between my resume and the job description or the job requirement. I'm going to fill those in. And, it might not be for that job, but I'll take a giant survey. And I've actually done this. I'll update it and say, look, okay, you want Excel? I got Excel. I'm an expert in Excel. Okay, you want this Tableau? I don't know anything about it. I'll go learn Tableau. And I'll just keep doing that until somebody bites on me. Because I don't really fancy working for the city as a libertarian, somebody who just spent the first half of this video railing against the government. I'm not a big fan. I realize it's there for a reason, but just my experience with government people is that it's just a place to go in 9 to 5. They don't really care. Not a lot of is asked of them, but uh, they just go in there and they get amazing pensions and just come out at the end. I don't know. I just kind of wanted a bit more to a career, but at this point, beggars can't be choosers. So anyway, that's all you have to do if you want to go to India is just keep, finding out what India is, and then just go in that direction. If you end up in discovering two continents, then it's a lot better than going to India, isn't it? So my main thing is I'm just going to take it day by day, try to cobble together a few wins, see where that goes. Could go in a different direction. You could end up discovering the new world and not even really knowing it. That's the thing. Um, so anyway, that's about all. I'm not sure about how many videos I'm going to do. I think I want to do another music video, not a music video, but talking about music video instead of I did 2 videos last week. I might just do that. I don't know how much free time I'm going to have or time to record anything. Like I say, people are not begging for these because I've only had like a few views on each one. Um, so, but I like doing it for my own sake. And if I keep to a schedule, then it keeps me talking to myself. So anyway, I might do a video later this afternoon for Friday. And I have a book review, but I haven't finished the book, and I don't feel that great about reviewing a book I haven't completely finished. But the best part of the book's over. So anyway, that's about all. I've blabbed on for nearly 40 minutes, so that's about all. See you soon. Toodaloo.